Hey, how's it going? My name's Mike. Let's get through there. All good. So, I'm a game artist. I'm just going to start with a bit of my backstory to just give a bit more weight on my history and things, and it might help, with some of the other points that I've got to make. So, I left home at 17 to begin my game dev adventures. Spent 2.5 years at Media Design School doing the 3D anim and game dev courses. It was one of the first models I ever did, so it's quite old. So after that, managed to land a job at She Interactive. This was a very long time ago when it wasn't called Pickpock. Learned a lot there, worked on some really cool projects, did a bunch of next-gen stuff, got really good at doing norm maps and, a lot of shader work and things like that, so I really enjoyed working there. We had quite a bit of downtime, so it was a really good time to, just get a little bit of dev work in there and be able to learn off some of the more talented artists, because they have a lot of, some of the artists that had been there for a very long time, so it was good being able to learn from them directly. After a couple of years there, I went full indie, and I'm talking as indie as it gets. So there was four of us in a lounge with a couple of cats and some flatmates for 12 months. We didn't really leave the house, and we kind of wore our pajamas all the time, and we hardly showered, but it was pretty cool. So it was big block games. It was based in Ara Valley in Wellington, and we did that for just over 12 months. And one of the cool things we did was Coffee Break Hero, which was a live game development on the internet. It was probably the first, I think it was one of the first live streams of a game being developed, and we raised over $9,000 for Child's Play charity. All the money was given to charity, and that was really fun. Even Notch from Minecraft fame congratulated us on such a cool idea, so we were pretty proud of that. After 12 months, we got to the point where we weren't making any money, and 2-minute noodles weren't as delicious as they were when I started, so we all decided to call it quits, and I did a Flappy Bird clone with a friend, and just did some other random stuff. I spent a lot of my time just kind of playing around at home. I did a bit of freelance stuff. I made this for my wife just for Valentine's Day one year, just to learn how to do rendering. I wasn't very good at mental race, so I just wanted to learn some new stuff. So I just, whipped this up, and it was kind of fun. And I just kind of got to a point where I was working from home, and I've got to say this, working from home is not all that. I know on the internet they say, work from home, earn $10,000 a day or whatever. It's actually pretty distracting. Working from a place that has a PlayStation, a TV, no one else around. I mean, I would not suggest work from home if you can. I'll get to that later. But I got to a point where I wasn't really doing a lot of freelance work, and I was kind of chilling out a bit too much, doing the washing for 4 hours and things like that. So I ended up applying for a job, and I managed to land my dream job. So I spent the next 5 years at Weta Digital. I was in the models department for 2 years, and then I was in the VAD department for a couple of years. The VAD department is, I don't know if it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of a souped up previs. We do a lot of previs work. We do a lot of real-time game arts. All of the work is real-time. It's PBR rendered. It's kind of like the stuff you do for a next-gen game, what you do for Unreal, but we had our own pipeline. We had our own rendering systems and things. There's a few people in this room that I know work at Weta Digital and have seen all this stuff. And it's basically used on the mocap stage. So when they've got people in mocap suits running around, the director can have a little virtual camera and a little screen, and he can actually see, like 3D characters in a 3D world. So he might have the monkey guys for Planet of the Apes kind of doing all this stuff, but he's actually seeing monkeys in a cave, and he can do all this framing and his final lighting and stuff in such an early phase. They don't even have sets built, and they can go through and really lock stuff down. He can have a full virtual camera while he's doing everything. So I did that for a couple of years, and that was really fun. We got to a point where I was, teaching more than I was being taught. So, I just thought that I wanted a new challenge, so I ended up leaving that. Actually, one cool thing I did do there was, if you guys have seen it at the Great War exhibition, I did this 3D model for this giant 3D print they did with milling machines. They tried to squeeze it in there in such a way that I think there was legally, there had to be like 1.5 meters for people to be able to escape in a fire, but that little gap there is the only way you can get out of the entire room. So PJ really wanted to take up the absolute maximum space, but modelling that was really fun. So I've done a few things and kind of done a bit of this and that. After I left, I went to work full-time for my company, Synty Studios, that I co-founded with my friend Andrew Steers. We started this a few years ago as a means to earn a bit of side cash, and it kind of, it's gone pretty good and it's kind of taken off. So I decided to, just go all in and give it a shot. So in February this year, I quit my job at Weta, and we've been doing this ever since. And this is our new style, if you haven't seen it, Polygon. It's a little bit different to the simple stuff, which is kind of more Minecraft-y. This stuff's just, I don't know, kind of more polygonal. It's a little bit higher res, but it's fun to work on, so I really enjoy doing that stuff. Cool, so I'm actually going to get to some of the points of my talk now. Tips to maintain good productivity. You might be, what are these things on here, but I'll just start with the ones on this side. So I would highly recommend, if you're like an indie guy or you're by yourself at home, whatever, get yourself into a shared space. Absolutely. I would say, a lot of you guys probably work for a studio, and even that's fine, but even after you work, you could have an hour in the evenings or whatever, you could go to a shared space and work with other people. But I think that's really important, is being able to work with other people. Working from home isn't that easy, and it's really hard to stay focused. There's a new one starting up, an AR, VR place, a projector in a couple of weeks. We've seen it, it's really cool. Level Up's one that I started with Andrew Steers, Rox Flame and Alex, which we've been running for over a year now, and we've got a few people in there coming in periodically. So yeah, if you can, get yourself into a shared space. It's going to make a huge difference to your game dev career, especially with indie developers. It's something I'd really like to push. I've got a couple other points for keeping your mind occupied. Now this is more for people that are more experienced. So if you're a senior or like a mid guy, you've been doing modeling or art stuff for a very long time, I would suggest maybe trying to keep your mind occupied while you're working, because you can get to tasks that are like a little bit more kind of mundane, or you've done them so many times they no longer keep your kind of attention. So I've noticed this a lot at Weta. All of the guys there that have been doing it for more than 10 plus years are watching movies, Netflix, they've got TV series on, whatever. They're always having something on their second screen while they're working, and I would say it actually increases productivity. A lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that. It kind of distracts me. I think at a certain point you will get to the point where what you're doing becomes more muscle memory, and it does become a little bit easier to have something running that just kind of keeps your mind going while you're working. And this is more for kind of grindy art task, as it were. If you can't watch Netflix or YouTube while you work, audiobooks are absolutely fantastic. They got me through doing 3 months straight of Dolgador. We were just shifting blocks around in 3D for about 3 months straight. And audiobooks were like a lifesaver, so that's great. And as you know, music's really good as well. So just try and keep your mind occupied if you do get to stuff that's a bit more mundane and you do find that you are procrastinating more than what you would like. Cool. Another thing I've got to say is just, don't spread yourself too thin, and when you've got spare time, spend it on your own stuff. Okay, you might have a day job, you might be working at a big studio. Cool, focus on that. That's really, really important. Don't have freelance work in your spare time you're doing for someone else earning money, and then you're working for a friend and you're helping out with the mod team. Just focus on a couple of things. If you have a full-time job, that's got to be a priority, because that's really important. You're going to learn a lot from them. But maybe in your spare time, try and do stuff that you want to do. That's the only time you're going to get, to do stuff that you want. And I feel like adding extra pressure is just not going to help you, especially after working at Weta 50 hours a week. I wouldn't go and try and do freelance work. I tried to do it for a bit, and it was pretty soul-crushing. So try and do your own stuff in your spare time if you can. And yeah, don't spread yourself too thin. Cool. Another thing is, don't be afraid to get a job. I've actually had a few people ask me, after talking about jobs that were available at Weta at the Game Dev Meetup and stuff, they're like, oh, should I take this job at Weta? It's not game development. How's it going to help me? A, you're going to get money for it, which is great. B, you're going to learn from people, which is really good as well. And C, there is a lot of game developers at Weta that do game development in their spare time. And not only that, the stuff we were doing, especially in the VAD department, was all real time. It's all PBR, baked normal maps using XNormal. We use Endo, we use ZBrush, we use Maya. These things are really important if you're a 3D developer, so it can't hurt. Getting better at ZBrush, getting paid to do it, can't say no. And all the companies I've worked at have heavily reinvested in their staff members. So I know Weta has the ATD course, and they bring in new people, kind of fresh talent, and they train them for 6 months. And they have full days, and they get paid to do it. It's not like an internship. They have full days of training, and they're paid and shown how to do everything from all the top guys at the company, and they keep reinvesting. So every week the ATDs will leave their post, whichever department they're in, and they'll go and do, like maybe a few hours every week. Plus, not only that, they spend a couple of months in each department to learn how the whole pipeline works. So I think that's another bonus as well. Industry connections, can't beat it. I know a lot of people here. I think that's a really good thing to have, being able to call on people or get friends involved. I know Aurora 44, Ash, Derek and Layden. I know them very well, and I know that their industry connections have helped them a lot with getting people like art directors and things, Peter Freer to help out. So I think industry connections is another huge one you're going to get, even from a big place. So I think definitely look at getting don't be afraid to get a job. I think that's a big one. You don't have to be an indie right from the get-go. You can pay your dues and kind of build up a bit of experience and cash and stuff like that. Plus, having money helps if you want to go full indie to pay for things like hiring artists, hiring coders, renting a shared space, whatever. Change is good. Keep it fresh. So I've worked at a bunch of places. I like to move around quite often. I would say don't be afraid to mix it up. This doesn't mean you should quit your job. You know, like either internally or externally. I remember when I was at Pickpock, I was doing 3D art, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to do some level design?" I was like, "Sure, I'll give that a go." You know, and if you feel like you want to try something else, talk to your leads, talk to your bosses, and just say, "Hey, look, I'd really like to give game design a go. Hey, I really would like to do a little bit of writing." You know, you never know what's going to happen. I've worked at a few departments at each of these companies. I've done a whole bunch of stuff, so you don't have to quit and go somewhere else. You can do internal movement as well, and I think it's really good just to mix it up. It'll help you as an artist, it'll help you as a developer, so please don't be afraid to move around. And if a cool opportunity comes up, take it. You know, if somebody offers you something that's kind of fun, or the company's like, "Hey, we want you to do this stuff here. It may not be the funnest, but you know, it's something a bit different. Just take it. Give it a go. You know, what have you got to lose?" Portfolios. So this is kind of more of a specific artist one. I'd say, you know, keep it varied as much as possible. When I applied at Weta, I had a whole bunch of stuff in my portfolio, but it was this one image that got me the job. So the head of department of the models department he was basically going through everything, and he kept coming back to this one thing. He's like, "Oh, how did you do that?" And then he looked at some more stuff, and he comes back, and he's like, "Oh, how did you do that?" And then he keeps looking at some more stuff, and he'd always come back to this. So I feel like it's probably that one thing that's going to get you a job. So make sure that you have, you know, like enough of a spread that you can kind of rope someone in. If you're doing freelance work, it's super important. They want to see a bunch of things. If you're working for an indie company, they're going to want to see even more, because they want a generalist. They want someone that can do anything. And they're going to need someone that can do a lot more than just the one thing. So, I mean, the models department is quite specific at Weta, but I did have a large net, and it was just the one fish that got me the job. And this is just some random stuff for my portfolio. A lot of it's quite old, but it does just show a little bit of everything. You know, I'm not the best 2D artist, but I try and do as much as I can just to be able to show it. A few of these things are from games and just me playing around with stuff as well. So yeah, just, you know, don't be afraid to mix it up. And I'll finish with my last point before I run out of time. This is something I'm really passionate about. I would say that if you're looking at doing PBR stuff, any physically based rendering or any next gen things, or you're working with Unreal and you want to get some, you know, realistic stuff, and then get your hands on stuff, you know, go out there, grab things. I've got a collection of weapons at home because I love modeling weapons, so I've got a whole bunch I can use as reference. But I mean, if you like doing kind of nature things, just, you know, go in and get some rocks. I've got a bunch of rocks at home that I can look at for, you know, shading reference, different types of rocks, things like rubbers. Photos don't do them justice. You can't look on Google and say, "Okay, cool, I'm going to recreate this rubber in Unreal using the shading network, specular reflectance, all that." You actually physically have to go and look at it, because photos and the way cameras work aren't going to help you out there. So just build your own little reference library. Weta's got them. All of the, you know, the kind of the hallways and things are just filled with skulls, furs, you know, different types of textures. I know you can't go and get a physical dragon, you know, but you can get some, you know, like some snake skin or some lizard skin or something that could potentially help you as reference. So that's something I really would push, is get your hands on stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say, yeah, if you guys want to ask me any questions, I've got heaps of knowledge, so I had to squeeze a lot into 15 minutes. But I would like to do some more talks and things, and send me your work if you've got any work you're working on. If you want to learn any new things, like any new softwares or anything, or you're having some problems with Maya or ZBrush or whatever, just hit me up, because, you know, I'm happy to help out. Cool.